This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, The Wizard. We have with us at Wizard today Jacqueline Saper. She's the author of the book From Miniskirt to Hijab, and we're very glad to have you here with us today, Jacqueline. How are you today?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, we met at the WZRD Chicago Tonight meet and greet, and you told me that you recently wrote your book From Miniskirt to Hijab, and you wanted to discuss it with us. And but first of all, you are an alumna of Northeastern Illinois University.
Yes, I
Could
am.
you tell us about your education here at Northeastern Illinois University?
Well, Northeastern Illinois University has a special place in my heart and in my life. It was the first university I attended in America. I graduated in December of 1994. It's been some time.
And what was your major?
College of Bachelor of Science in Business, concentrating in accounting, and I graduated summa cum laude.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
It's very hard.
Yeah, I received 2 awards while I was here, which was very meaningful.
What kind of awards?
It was called Alfred B. Robinson Award, and another one was Award in Excellence, in College of Excellence Award. It was very meaningful. We had a reception downtown. I got a medal. I still have it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful! What was the first award awarding you? What was it? What did you do to deserve that award?
Just high grades.
Oh,
My perseverance, good grades, and the potential of what I could be.
Of course.
I continued. I took a CPA. I became a CPA from the Board of Advisors of Illinois University. I became a CPA, and I practiced as a certified public accountant for years.
When you were a student and you earned such high grades, were you able to do extracurricular activities? Did you have time for that?
Well, at the time, I was a mother and of 2 young children. And that's why Northeastern is so special to me, because I came back to school when I was 29 years old. My education had been stopped from high school until I could attend university in America. Because
And Northeastern was your first university in America?
Well, I went to Oakton Community College.
I see.
I got a liberal arts degree there. Then I transferred here. And it worked very well because, as I said, I was a mother of 2 young kids, and I could juggle all the responsibilities I had. And I was working I was a preschool teacher at the time as well, so I had a part-time job.
So were you a full-time student?
I was a full-time student,
Well,
yes.
Congratulations for earning such high grades with all that
Thank
other
you.
stuff on your plate.
Thank you.
Please describe your upbringing in Iran.
Yes, well, actually, I'm an Iranian American. I immigrated to the United States in 1987. My upbringing in Iran, I grew up there in the 60s and 70s. It was an idyllic time when it was during the time when Iran had a Shah. Shah means king, the monarch. It was a Western, pro-Western, secular monarchy. It wasn't that much difference than growing up in America. You know, I wore miniskirts. I attended a co-ed school. I traveled to Europe. I had a privileged upbringing, and it was a very nice time.
Do you know what the life was for those that were less privileged than you? Did you have any idea at that
Actually,
time?
I did, because my father was a university professor, and as you know, well, you may not, my father's Iranian. I was born in Iran. I grew up there, but my mother is British, and she was a career woman.
A career in what?
My mom worked as the assistant to the airport manager at Mehrabad International Airport in Tehran. She had a high position, and this is the time and era where the majority of Iranian women were competent homemakers, and they stayed home. But my mom was a career woman, so we had live-in maids, home helpers, and they came from the underclass, devout Muslim population group. And I was an insightful child. They became my second mothers. And because they knew everything about the culture. They were my Iranian mothers. They gave me something that my own mom could not. And I was very close to them. And through them, I understood the hardships of what we call the underclass, who eventually they did an uprising and the revolution occurred.
So did you learn about what the Iranian Revolution meant through them? Is that your first knowledge of the Iranian Revolution?
Because, well, I lived it. I went through the revolution. But having that exposure with the home helps helped me a lot, because I grew up Jewish, in a Jewish family, in a society where 98 or more % of the population are Muslim. So through them, I learned the Islamic, salutations, protocol, which came very much handy after the revolution.
You mentioned on your website that your favorite book was Tale of Two Cities. So what kind of violence did you encounter during the Iranian Revolution that was comparable to what was happening in France during the setting of the Tale of Two Cities?
Well, very much, a lot of similarities. In Tale of Two Cities, there was a king who was overthrown by the uprising of the masses. This happened in Iran. It was at Tehran that I grew up, the capital city. It became two cities, the one before the revolution and the one after, completely with different ideology, different mindset, different regimes, very, very different.
What about the privileged and the rich during the revolution? Were they in danger? What was their life like?
Very much so. The educated elite, who more or less were aligned with the Shah, the prior government, they were arrested. Many of them escaped the country. The latter part of 1978 and 1979, when the revolution was happening, was the time of chaos, and a lot of people who were escaping the country. They left property behind.
What about your father and your family?
We stayed. So we were not any key players in the prior regime, but there's a reason we stayed. Everybody couldn't just pick up and drop everything and go. You needed visas to go to another country. So we stayed, and I stayed for 8 years after the revolution.
So you saw the entire revolution,
Absolutely.
basically.
I was there. It was about 8-9 months of chaos. Then when the new regime, Islamic Republic of Iran, was founded, I stayed there until 1987, so for 8 years longer. And this is the first decade, those years were the most fundamental, volatile time of the revolution, because a new regime was establishing itself. There were a lot of executions of prior regime, people who were associated with prior regime or opponents of the new regime, and there was a Iraq-Iran war happening at that time.
And there was also the Iranian hostage crisis.
Absolutely. And I was in the street when this happened, by chance. I was shopping in some boutiques nearby, and I heard the riots and the demonstrations, and I thought to myself,
what were the riots like in Iran versus over here? Were there fires, looting? What was it like?
Well, during the revolution, there were burnings of tires, shootings, tanks in the streets, but the revolution succeeded in February of 1979. The Iran hostage crisis happened in November 1979. So I was confused. Obviously, there were no shootings and tanks, but there were, slogans shouting of "Death to America," and and I was thinking, what's happening now? What's going on now? And obviously, they were going up the gates of the American embassy, and they went inside.
How did the Iranian Revolution affect you, if at all?
Very much so. It changed the direction and the course of my life. If Iranian Revolution had not happened, I would be still in Iran. I would have had a completely different life. The Iranian Revolution stopped my education. I could not get an education in Iran.
You said that you only had were educated up to high school, so that was high
Yes.
school in Iran.
Right. Well, high school. What was high school in Iran? Was that your question?
That's your highest level of education
My
before
highest- yes.
you came to the
Yes, I
university.
graduated the year of the revolution, 1979. I graduated from high school, and it was expected for me to go to university. But what happened in Iran after the revolution, in 1980, the all higher education institutions were closed down. It was
Why? Because they were too Western?
Yes, exactly. It was called the Cultural Revolution, and for 3 years there was no opportunity to go to school. And when they reopened, it was a lot of curriculum was omitted. Any Western ideals were taken out, and then getting into university, no matter what field of study I wanted to do, I had to take a theology exam in Shiite Islam, and you had to have a recommendation letter from the nearby mosque's cleric. And, it became more or less I was an outcast and I could not go because I was a religious minority.
Please describe how, if any, discrimination that you experienced as a, how do you pronounce this?
Dorage?
Dorage?
Yes.
Binational, which made up 0.29% of the population of 35 million at the time. What was it like being a
Dorage.
Dorage?
Yeah. Well, let me make some clarifications. The Jewish minority in Iran have lived in Iran, have existed there for 2,500 years, a millennia before Islam came there. So they've been there for a long time. But at the time of the revolution, Iran's population was 35 million, and the Jewish community was around 100,000, which is 1/3 of 1%.
Right.
But there were visible, vibrant members of the community, and I experienced no discrimination. Now, within this very small community, my family was one of a kind and very unique because it was bicultural. My mom was Western European, my father Iranian. And there were literally no other Iranian Jewish families who had a foreign parent. So anyone who in Iran who has one parent from different nationalities or races, they're called dorage. And rag in Persian means a vein, as if they have two kinds of veins. So my experiences was a little different because I was the only, more that I know of, Jewish girl who was bicultural. It was a positive experience. I was always admired for my looks. My father and our family was respected. And I grew up with more insights because having English relatives, I realized I wasn't like my British cousins or like my Iranian cousins. And because I traveled every year to England, I could shift myself to become who they wanted me to be. Among Iranians, I'm 100% Iranian. When I went to England, I was just like them. And I understood the differences in culture, how to behave, how to speak, because it's a very different culture from each other. Yes.
This is the Wizard, WZRD Chicago, 88.3 FM. So, Jacqueline, you weren't bullied then at all?
Well, bullying it's natural. I think more or less I won't say bullying, but at that era, it was very important to be popular among the popular kids. Fashion was important, but to say bullying, no, I don't think so.
Do you have any idea about how the Dorage are currently treated by others in Iran and the percentage of the population today?
Well, Iran, more or less, it's a country of very many different diverse ethnicities. There are the Kurds, the Turks, the Lurs, the Persians, some Arabs, but it's more or less homogeneous because they're all natives of the land. But to have foreigners living in Iran nowadays is not that common. So everybody's Iranian.
So if non-Iranians cannot live in the country comfortably? Do they
No,
get
they
discriminated?
can. They
Oh,
can.
they just don't want to?
Iranians, by culture, are very hospitable. They love guests. It's a beautiful, rich culture, and they're very nice people. But obviously, with current relations going on, I would not recommend an American family to go and live there.
I see.
It's not easy.
Mhm.
Although the people are very nice, but with the governments, so
There's
yeah.
no privacy to be a regular family, is what you're saying.
It depends who you are, but there are a lot of Indian families, doctors who live in Iran. But to say to go and live there, there's not a community for them. Before the revolution, the expats had clubs, television programs, restaurants. Nowadays, that's not going to be that easy.
So the popular culture presently in Iran is similar to post-Iranian revolution?
Yes, it's Islamic Republic. It's in Iran. Iran was called Iran until 1979. After the revolution, it's officially called Islamic Republic of Iran. And after the revolution, there is no separation between religion and state. So everything is according to religion, how you behave, how the laws are. So it's a little different.
Iranians can't access Western music or television then?
Well, the television and media there is state-run, but obviously through internet, through apps, they are exposed to what's going on outside.
So the Iranian government doesn't block that programming from the internet?
They do block some of them. Internet is it's monitored. It's slow. I can tell you it's slow. When there have been protests, some apps were stopped. But people are smart. They go around it.
They find a way.
They find a way, and Iran's population now is 82 million. So I can say 2/3 or 70% or more are a very young population, maybe 35 and under, and they yearn for more freedoms, and they're attuned to what's going on in the other parts of the world, again, through social media.
How hard was it for you to get a visa to come to the U.S.? And are you a permanent resident of the U.S.?
I'm a citizen. Yes.
Citizen?
Yeah, I'm a citizen.
Do you have dual citizenship then?
I do, but I don't plan to go back to Iran because of a few, in Iran, Zionism is forbidden. You cannot be pro-Israel. But I have traveled there, so that.
What about pre-Iranian Revolution? Zionism was
No,
accepted?
before the revolution, actually, Iran had acknowledged Israel. They had amicable relationship, and there were direct flights from Tel Aviv to Tehran every day. So it was, and United States obviously was one of the best, most closest allies of Iran, and U.S. were very close.
So did you experience any kind of repression during the Iranian Revolution?
Well,
except for being careful?
repression. Well, as a Jew, in general, as a religious minority, I was concerned because of the animosity of the new regime towards Israel. We were afraid that we would be associated with that. However, Imam Khomeini, who was the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the leader of the revolution, he declared that Christians and Jews, who are the people of the book, that means that they are monotheistic faith who preceded Islam, they are accepted as citizens of Iran, and they were not to be mistreated. So we could practice our faith. However, obviously, any association with Israel was a crime. But unfortunately, there is another faith in Iran called the Baha'is. There is a Baha'i temple in Wilmette here. And since the revolution, their members have been persecuted very much so.
Just a very brief description of how Baha'i faith differs from Islam.
Baha'i faith differs in the way that their leader, their prophet Baha'u'llah, He appeared only about 200 years ago or so.
I see.
It's a very new religion,
Mhm.
and in Islam there is a belief that Prophet Muhammad
I
is
see.
the last messenger of God. So any other messenger is not to be accepted.
I see. What are some American misconceptions about Iran?
As I mentioned, Iran has a very rich culture. It's an ancient country of over 2,500 years. Once upon a time, it was the Persian Empire. Iran's name was Persia until 1935, and then it was changed to Iran.
And why was it? Why
It was
did it
always
change?
known as Iran in the country by the people. It was Iran.
What does Iran mean?
Well, Iran, they originally come from they were from nomads who were called Aryans,
I see.
and they lived in the Caucasus area, and they're their descendants. So they were always called Iran, but in Iran, it used to have, in the olden times, there were a lot of wars with the Greek, and I think then when one of the kings of Iran, Cyrus the Great, came from the province of Pars. And for the Greeks, Pars is called Persia,
Mhm.
and that province became the dominant area of the country, so it was just referred to as Persia.
Aryan, is that how do you spell Aryan? It's not spelled Aryan.
It's not, don't confuse it with the Nazis and their philosophy, but it was a people,
I
and
see.
they're from that area.
So it is the same people, but it's not the
Possibly.
same philosophy.
No,
I
no,
understand that.
Yes, but and the misconceptions about Iran, as I mentioned, it's absolutely a beautiful country, 4 seasons. It's a very large country. I believe it's the 18th largest country in the world. It has the Caspian Sea to the north, and the Persian Gulf. Obviously, we hear it in the news to the south. The people by culture are nice people. It's the government that we hear about, and we see people on the news. We see protests, death to America, and all that. That's a small sliver of the country. People. I mean, and it has a beautiful, delicious cuisine, and a lot of nice things about the culture. And they speak Persian. Iranians speak the language is Persian, or known as Farsi in Iran.
Mhm.
And unlike the people, the dominant majority in the Middle East, Iranians are Persian ethnicity. They are not Arabs like the other countries, and obviously they don't speak Arabic. The religious stricture is in the Arabic language, but the majority of Iranians don't speak Arabic. They don't know it.
But they do believe in Islam,
Correct.
but they do not speak Arabic.
Correct.
Are there any other countries in the Middle East that are like that?
Yes, in the Middle East, well, Turkey is an example.
I see.
Turkey, well, half of Turkey is in Asia. They speak Turkic. They're of Turkic ethnicity. In the Middle East, I could say about 60% of Arabs, like Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, but 40% are not non-Arabs, like Iranians, Turks. The Kurds. The Kurds don't have a country, but there are 30 million Kurds who speak Kurdish, and obviously Israel, which is in the Middle East.
Okay. So why did you become a writer and a journalist?
Well, actually, by training, I'm an accountant, but in 2009, my whole career path changed because there was an uprising in Iran. There was a rigged election going on, and people were very upset because they believed that their votes had not been counted, and the President Ahmadinejad was elected for a second term, and a lot of people were dissatisfied with that. So there was an uprising, people poured in the streets, and there were some chaotic moments there, and I was just working, minding my own business, and I got a call from a law firm. They were desperate for Persian translators. There were an influx of refugees and asylum seekers because they were going to be arrested in Iran. So I fell into a whole different career path, and I loved it. I became a translator. I worked with asylum seekers, and
Asylum seekers in the U.S., right?
correct. And since then, I have been a volunteer at National Immigrant Justice Center. I volunteer and give my time. I translate, I work with supervising attorneys.
You still do this?
I still do that. I'm working on a case right now. Then there is a movie called Alex and Ali. It's a documentary thriller. I worked with the producers, Left Brain, Right Brain Productions. There was 80 hours of recordings that I translated, and I subtitled the whole movie. And then people were so interested in my unique background. I had so much to offer, so I became a public speaker. I kept on speaking, gave lectures, and then people asked me, then why don't you write about your book? And I realized that I have an obligation to tell the world what happened in Iran, because for others, the Iranian Revolution is just a footnote in history, something that has no physical or psychological significance for them. But for me, it changed my life, and I have an obligation to tell this story.
Did you have any trouble getting a visa, and your family getting a visa to come to the U.S.?
Absolutely, I did. After the revolution, unfortunately, there was discrimination. Although we were recognized as a religious minority, but we were still second-class citizens. And for me, more so, because not only I was a religious minority, I was also a woman. And women in Iran, more or less, I could say, they've been discriminated because the laws changed. The laws like child custody, divorce, is all in favor of men. And women
And it wasn't like this pre-revolution?
No, absolutely not. Most important was the mandatory veiling of women after the revolution. All women are compelled to wear the hijab. I wore it for 8 years, regardless that I was not a Muslim woman. And today in Iran, women are at the forefront of the opposition, because many don't want to wear the hijab. And for example, there's a big news in the Western media. In Iran, women are not allowed to go to sports stadiums, and many other things. So for me, as a woman and as a religious minority woman, life was restricted. And there was a time, it wasn't a law, but it wasn't written anywhere, but they would make it very difficult for Jews to leave the country. They would not give me a passport.
Why was that? They wanted to keep you there for what? Or they just wanted others who wanted to leave to give them priority? Why?
I don't know. Discrimination. They wanted maybe money, but many did. It wasn't the question of money for me. They would not give me a passport, or they would allow the husband to. I was married in Iran. I had my 2 children in Iran. They would let's say they would allow the husband to leave, but the wife had to stay behind, or they would.
Is that what happened in your case?
You have to read the book.
Okay.
People ask me, how did you get out of Iran? During those times, many people left illegally by land, by human smugglers, by the desert, which was very, very dangerous. We did not want to do that.
Of course.
So, can I show my book?
Sure.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
This is my book. It's the publisher is Potomac Books of the University of Nebraska Press.
Okay, so it wasn't self-published.
No,
yes.
it was not self-published, and I'm very proud of this publisher.
Is this your first book?
It's my first book. Actually, I'm working on my second book now. And the publisher is the largest publisher of university presses between Chicago and Los Angeles. It's been in business for 75 years. So it's absolutely an honor to be published by them.
Did they approach you with a proposal, or did you write the manuscript and send it to them?
Actually, I had finished the manuscript, and I thought of, the route is to find an agent. So I sent my manuscript to some agents, and it's so difficult to find an agent. And I thought to myself, let me try a different route. It is a nonfiction. It's history, but in a personal story. So I approached them, and
in person, or did you just send it to them?
I sent it to the acquiring editor. He was interested, but he said it went through a rigorous review. they had about, I think in total 13 reviewers look at it before they accepted it. And then they hired, who I don't know who it was, a scholar on Iranian studies to read the manuscript to validate that all the dates and events and the location of places is correct. And the print...
Did he find any mistakes?
No, because I was absolutely truthful. And the publication, it's a slow process. It took almost 2 years to publish, but because there's so many departments. But I'm very happy I waited and went the right way. The cover, I was concerned because I didn't know what kind of cover they would choose.
It's a beautiful cover.
They chose a picture of me at the age of 17. So, and I have actually the blurbs at the back. One blurb is from Dr. Matteo Mohammad Farzaneh, who's the associate professor of history at this university. And he was very kind enough to, he's Iranian American, he was very kind enough to read the manuscript and give me a blurb.
Was he one of the 13 reviewers or no?
No, the reviewers were from the
enough.
university of the publishers themselves. He was the blurb who provided the blurb at the back of the book. Yes.
So you had no other relationship with that professor?
No. I was here a long time ago. Yes, and my major was not history, but now I think I've become a historian. I'm very much interested in. I lecture on at Oakton Community College as an Iran subject matter expert. I give and with the news today, Iran is always in the news. That's why my book is so timely.
Right. Are Iranians represented in the American press? In other words, are there many Iranians who are reporters for the American press that you know of?
Some are, yes. Well, first let me say that Iranian Americans in the United States are one of the most successful immigrant group in the country. They are highly educated and or very well-known businessmen.
Are they usually educated in the West, and if so, in what countries?
Here, mostly in America. They've been educated in the United States. And as for women reporters, there are some, especially now that 40 years after the revolution, mainly the second generation Iranian Americans. But the majority of my age group are successful businessmen, doctors, scientists, university professors.
You know what businesses thrive in Iran?
Today?
Yes. Is there a thriving business community in Iran? Are there many people that go to Iran to do business? Because we have a College of Business and Management here at Northeastern Illinois University, and I'm sure that the students are very curious about the business climate in Iran.
Well, unfortunately, with the current sanctions, the economy is suffering, very much so. But I guess it depends what you're looking for. There may be a very good real estate market. There, in regards to technology, I know there is an equivalent of Amazon in Iran, which is doing very well.
What is it called?
I don't know actually.
That's okay.
It has a Persian name. I just forgot.
That's okay. Our listeners
it's
could look
doing
it up.
very well. And remember, it's 82 million people there.
Right.
So it's a very untapped market.
How interested are Iranians in Western culture and goods? It's hard for them to access it, but do they crave it?
Well, actually, I think they do, because the majority of Iranians are young, and it's a land of contradictions. The leaders are elderly, majority clerics who've been there forever. The same, more or less, a lot of the faces are the faces of the people, the founding revolutionaries. But loves America. They enjoy American movies. No, not on the movie theater, but they get bootleg videos. Again, with YouTube and their satellite TV. So they're interested to know what's happening. Absolutely, they want to be part of the global community.
How hard is it for Iranians to access the news that is happening outside Iran?
Well, the news in Iran obviously is state-run and heavily censored.
Absolutely.
A lot of journalists are in prison because they write what they think. But again, through apps, through internet, although it's heavily censored and small, they still somehow get access to it. Voice of America is in Persian. They listen to that. Radio Israel has a Persian, BBC Persian. There's all these programmings that they can get uncensored news.
Okay. You have written for the press, articles, etc.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what your editors do not permit you to include in your articles?
I have not encountered any editors that have said don't write that. No. Well, obviously, I'm writing as a journalist in America, so there is freedom of press, and I greatly appreciate that. I understand how valuable it is. My articles are, non-factual. They're very much factual, but not. I'm not political. I don't take sides. I'm just going to be factual and tell the truth.
Breitbart is very Republican, let's say,
Correct.
and you were published by them as well. What did you publish with them, and how did it come to be published?
Well, I was that was my very first op-ed, and my first article, and someone I knew, their son worked there. He said, "I'm going to publish it." At the time, I really didn't know how their political affiliation, and actually my article is absolutely non-political. So I don't take sides. My article was about the Holocaust, and it was about Iran, because, as you know, Iran denies the Holocaust, and especially the prior president Ahmadinejad had to even ridiculed it. And my article was about, it was titled Two Irans and One Holocaust, because prior to this regime, the prior regime actually helped Holocaust victims. There were many Polish Jews who went to Iran. They hosted them, they accepted them, and they provided a route for them to get to, at that time, Mandate Palestine.
So this prior regime that you're talking about, it is post-Iranian Revolution, right?
The prior regime is the regime of the Shah, the king.
I see.
Yes,
I see.
and there was a Iranian diplomat by the name of Sardari, who was the diplomat in Paris. And he issued, there were a lot of Iranian Jews at that time in Paris during the Holocaust. He issued new passports omitting their religion, and he saved many lives of Iranian and French Jews during the Holocaust. So I said, two Irans and one Holocaust. So my article was absolutely non-political.
And what was your first article ever written for the press? That was the first one. That was the first one.
Yes.
What is your latest one then?
The latest one was about hijab. It was called From Oppression to Empowerment, because
is this based from your material in your book?
My material in the book, my own experiences, absolutely. I write about while in America, many women in America choose to wear the hijab, which should be respected, and it's a sign of their faith by choice. They wear it by choice. But in Iran, there is no choice. And
what are the repercussions of not wearing it? Execution, jail, what?
I won't say execution, but arrestment, heavy fines. There's morality police. The patrol the streets.
Are they in uniform or are they undercover?
Both. Both. And the youth are, the Iranian people, men and women, they're so smart. They've created an app that shows where they are to omit them. Yeah, it's a harsh treatment. You cannot, but the hijab that I wore in Iran during those times, it was very severe and harsh. I had a choice of 4 colors, gray, navy blue, black, and brown. And I had to cover half of my forehead, no makeup, no nail polish. It was very harsh. Nowadays, women have been so opposing this. Not all women, but a lot of women. The hijab now has different formats. Women wear lighter colors, and they do show part of their hair in the front. They do use makeup, but again, it's a give or take. You have to be careful.
Do you know anything about the backlash that women who protested against wearing hijab, such as this, and other constraints? What backlash did they get from the government? The initial women who fought to get more rights for women.
Well, in May 8th, it was International Women's Day in 1979. That was just, I'm sorry, March 8th. It was just a few months after the revolution had succeeded. Ayatollah Khomeini announced that women had to wear the hijab in the workforce. And obviously, this was a shock to everybody. Remember, before the revolution, women were just like here, very much westernized, Western clothing. So I was 18. It was very upsetting to all of us. So a lot of women went in the streets to protest against this. Unfortunately, some were attacked. And it went nowhere because eventually wearing the hijab for all women, it took about 2 years to impose it.
But now women could wear different colors, like a different style. But I'm just asking, when women started pushing back to get more rights to escape from that narrow requirement, there must have been some first women who started protesting. What was the pushback against them? Did they get arrested? Did they get fined?
Yes.
What happened to them?
Fines, arrestments. As I said, morality police were installed very shortly after that, and they're very harsh, very harsh. Women would be screaming in the streets, and they would take them in the vans, or they would reprimand them. I was reprimanded once. And I learned my lesson to be careful. And then I've written other articles. My other article was printed in the Jerusalem Post, which is an international publication. And it was around...
Is it an online publication or is it...
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. And it was a beautiful article. I compared the holiday of Passover, which is a Jewish holiday, with the holiday of Nowruz, which is a Persian New Year. And because of the coexistence between the Persians and the Jews for so long in the same land, obviously the Jewish Persians are Persians, the holidays have a lot of similarities. And I compared and contrast these two holidays.
Do the two cultures go by the lunar calendar or the solar calendar?
Well, that's a very good question. The Persian calendar is absolutely solar. The Jewish calendar is a combination of lunar and solar. Every 4 years, there is an extra month in the Jewish calendar. It's 13 months, and this aligns all the holidays in the correct time. But although Iran has a Persian calendar and it celebrates ancient Persian holidays like Nowruz, the New Year, it also has an Islamic calendar which it adheres to for religious holidays. And the Islamic calendar is absolutely lunar calendar. So in Jewish calendar, some holidays always fall around the same time. But in Islamic calendar, holidays rotate. Every year is 11 days earlier. For example, the holy month of Ramadan, which is a month of fasting, some years it's in the summer, some years it's in the winter. Okay. But the Jewish holidays of, let's say, Jewish holiday, New Year holidays coming up, Rosh Hashanah, that's the New Year, it's always in the fall.
When you said 11 days earlier, so it keeps on going back and back, it never goes back forward.
Yes,
it keeps on moving.
It moves, yes.
What advice do you have for our students and our other listeners about writing and journalism?
I would say write from your heart. Write what you know about, what your passion is. You have to have very good knowledge about what you want to write about. For example, when I wrote my book or when I write about Iran, obviously I don't know everything about Iran, but because I have that passion and love for it, for the subject matter, researching it is a joy. It's more fun and interesting. So,
was more of your research from people or from scholarly articles?
Both.
And both?
Both. Both. I'm a keen and attuned to what's going on, and I just pick up information because I like it. So write about what you know and what you like and you enjoy researching and doing.
Did you have any mentors in literature and in the press?
Actually, one mentor was Dr. Farzaneh. He was wonderful. Well, this book is mainly my memoir, so it's mostly personal experiences. But my mentors actually are some analysts that I listen on TV, on YouTube, Persian, Iranian analysts. And
What do they analyze?
current events in Iran, or I learned a lot from them.
Okay. When they analyze current events, their knowledge is based on what? Since in Iran there is that censorship of world
some are
events.
outside Iran. They're outside Iran, so they can speak freely. And I read publications. I read Persian language newspapers. And with technology today, you really don't have to be in a country to know about a country. I have on my phone, I have apps that I can watch Iranian TV. And especially with my translation work with asylum seekers, I need to be abreast with what's going on, mostly with the culture. One thing I can tell you that after the revolution, the language evolved with a revolutionary jargon, with more Arabic words, and the culture changed. So many of Iranians who left Iran during the revolution really they can't understand some aspects. If you watch an Iranian current movie, or if you hear the supreme leader speak, they may not understand everything what he's saying.
Are there more religious references? How is it different?
Islamic words, a lot of Islamic words. You have to be knowledgeable about the Shiite religion, and through my home helps, who are maids who raised me, and through living in Iran, because after the revolution,
Were they Shiites?
yes, Iranians are about 95 to 96% Shiite Muslims, which is a minority sect in Islam. About, I could say, 80% of Muslims are Sunni Muslims, and about 18% are Shiite Muslims. They are called Shia. And after the revolution, because Iran became such a conservative society, and religion was such a major part of the country and daily life, 3 times a day on TV we could hear the azan, the prayer. So whether you like it or not, you learn about the religion. So I'm very well versed about Shia Islam and Islam in general, and that makes it easier for me to know more about Iran.
How has Iranian television and maybe radio changed, even literature, how has it changed over the years, from post-revolution till about now?
Another good question. During the revolution, right after the revolution, it was very much clerics giving you guidance of how to act and do. And then the war happened with Iraq. It was all battle scenes and war movies. But now Iranian TV is a lot of TV films, a lot of series. Actually, Iranian movie industry has done very well lately. In 2012, I believe, and 2018, 2 Iranian movies have won the Oscars: The Separation and it's called Furushande, The Salesman. They've won an Oscar for Best Foreign Movie.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of good Iranian movies out there.
What about Iranian television?
Iranian television, again, it's a lot of series,
Like,
soap operas, but they
mhm.
are so heavily censored. I mean, it shows women in their kitchen cooking, or women waking up from sleep in bed wearing a full hijab. I know no woman goes to bed in that format. But it's so heavily censored.
So it's not changed much over the years. It's still, or
It has to abide by religious Islamic protocol. For example, in Iranian movies in general, there's obviously no sex scenes, no shaking of hands, no kissing, no
touching.
embracing, no touching. But that gives them another outlet to show feelings. For example, if a man reads a poetry for a woman, or if he looks in her eyes, that means he's in love. So they work around it.
Yes, there's opportunities to be creative
Absolutely.
because of that.
Very much so, yes.
And has that creativity increased because is it you can only do that much, or people find ways to be creative in new ways?
I think they're very creative in new ways.
Is there any specific or a couple of instances that really impressed you about their creativity?
Well, there's some movies. I saw a movie called Gabe, which is about a village girl, and
What does that mean, Gabe?
it's just a name.
Okay.
It's a name, and it was filmed in the village, but it showed beautiful scenery of the farm, of the landscape, which you cannot find in the inner city. In like Tehran is about 14 million population, heavy traffic, pollution, but in that scenery you saw so many colors, and village women, unlike city women, their hijabs are so they can wear colorful because they are
The morality police aren't on the street over there.
no, they are covered, but they use color. They wear colorful clothing, beautiful scenery, and these people were carpet weavers. So you saw there was so much color in this movie. Beautiful carpets. Persian rugs are very famous.
Right. Was it semi-documentary? Did it depict?
No, it was a movie.
It
was a
was.
movie, but they use creativity. The storylines are very good. So it's just a different world. Any foreign movie opens up your eye to another culture.
How do you spell the title of the movie so that our listeners could?
Gabbeh, Gabbeh.
Okay.
And there are other, as I say, The Salesman won the Oscar. I think it's an excellent movie. It's subtitled, so you can understand it. A Separation. These are very good movies.
Well, thank you. And did I pronounce your name right? Saper?
Saper.
Saper.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Jacqueline Saper,
Thank you.
a writer and reporter and author of From Miniskirt to Hijab. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for
Well,
being with
actually,
us.
it's called From Miniskirt to Hijab, A Girl in Revolutionary Iran.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago today, and good luck to you on your second book.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.